One comedian ended his colleague's career with an explosive theft accusation, while another pair's hatred runs so deep they've been sworn enemies since before the 21st century even began. These are comedians who absolutely can't stand each other, and there's no better place to begin than with the fiery feud between Joe Rogan and Carlos Mencia, because these two hated each other so much that they didn't think twice about dragging each other through the mud in front of a live audience.
You don't know, if someone steals a riff from a song, that shit's in the news constantly. Yeah. Steal shit and make it on HBO, they steal shit, they put it on television.
But before we get to the moment when the powder keg finally exploded, let's take a step back and see how things escalated to that breaking point. Joe Rogan burst onto the stand-up comedy scene in Boston in 1988 and quickly gained attention with his high-energy performances and razor-sharp humor.
Take bimbos and ask like real easy questions, you can tell them anything, right? Like, what are you thinking about? Corn. Really? What kind of corn? The kind you put on your door for Thanksgiving, but you never really eat. Oh my God, you're really deep, huh?
Meanwhile, over in Los Angeles, Carlos Mencia was dominating the comedy circuit, landing spots on The Tonight Show and shows like In Living Color.
Kids call the police on their parents because parents suck today because their kids aren't afraid of them. I was afraid of my mother. You know why? Because I tried to do the same thing when I was a kid. My mom was from Mexico. She wasn't putting up with this. I'm like, Mom, they told me in school that I could call the police on you. And if you hit me, it's child abuse and the police is going to take you away. She pulled out the phone and went, go ahead and call the police. But before you do, you better call the ambulance and tell them there's a little dead Mexican kid in my house. Go ahead.
But all of that success took a nosedive when Rogan accused Mencia of stealing jokes. In 2005, things really blew up when Rogan called out Mencia during a live show at the Comedy Store in LA. While Mencia was on stage, Rogan boldly marched up and began accusing him of stealing jokes from other comics.
Yes. They're not agreeing with you. They don't even know what the fuck I do. They don't even know what the fuck I do. They don't know shit. You just talk shit. It's easy to say you steal shit. I could say you steal shit.
Rogan's big issue was that Mencia had been swiping material from comedians without giving them credit. The comedian even mentioned specific jokes that seemed to rip off people like Ari Shaffir and Bobby Lee, and Mencia, of course, denied it all, and things quickly turned into a heated back and forth with the insults flying.
I opened for you and did that joke. In the rooms you performed it.
I was doing that joke before.
No, you weren't.
Yes, bro.
Absolutely not.
The fallout from this became huge, especially for Mencia, and his reputation took a massive hit, with the comedian even admitting later on that he does in fact sometimes steal from other entertainers.
Listen to me, and look at me when I tell you this with all honesty. If you think that I steal jokes, fuck yeah, you're right. Of course I steal jokes. Are you out of your mind? When I come to a comedy club, you better run, bitch. You better get the off stage. Because if anything you say is even remotely funny, I'm gonna make it mine.
But when it comes to fallouts between comedians, there was one feud that cannot be ignored, and that was the one between Joan Rivers and Johnny Carson. Joan Rivers was a trailblazing comedian, actress, and television host known for her sharp wit and fearless humor, and she rose to fame in the 1960s as a guest on The Tonight Show, becoming one of the first women to break into the male-dominated world of stand-up comedy.
My kitchen is so dirty, my mice wear spikes. I mean, oh yes! You want the floor to shine? I have to wax the roaches. I don't. You know what?
Johnny Carson, the legendary host of The Tonight Show from 1962 to 1992, would be hailed as the king of late night, known for his unmatched charisma, perfect comedic timing, and magnetic connection with audiences. But it was the breakdown of their relationship that surprised everyone. Rivers had always been a hit when guesting on Carson's couch.
I don't feel any of it. I feel great.
Yeah, you know when I feel older? I went to buy sexy underwear, and they automatically gift wrapped it.
Oh.
And you go, oh.
Obviously for your aunt or something, sure.
But it was when Rivers was given her own late-night show on the Fox network that Carson suddenly saw her as a threat.
Which was stupid. I was going on Fox. Fox had 5 stations in those days. Carson absolutely tried to kill me.
And it was when the comedian tried contacting Carson to tell him the news that things would never be the same between the pair again.
Bullshit. I called him, he hung up on me, I called him again. And the second time when I called him, his wife said he's not here. I said, he was in that big house in Malibu. I said, it's one room. He had this huge, major glass. I said, he's there. It's one room. He's there. And he never spoke to me again. Ever. I was broke. I couldn't get myself arrested. I would see him in a restaurant. He still wouldn't talk to me. Mean. Mean son of a bitch.
But if there's anything worse than a feud between friends, it's one that drags on for 3 long decades, and that's exactly what happened with Jerry Seinfeld and Bobcat Goldthwait. Before things went south, these two were both thriving in their own respective careers. Seinfeld, of course, was riding high with his sitcom, which debuted in 1989 and quickly became one of the biggest shows of the 90s.
So, Putty, I decided I'm going to go with another 900 convertible.
All right, classic. High five.
Goldthwait, on the other hand, was known for his wild and high-pitched voice and quirky comedic style after having gained fame in the 80s through stand-up comedy and memorable films like the Police Academy series.
I'm out of here. Wait a minute. I am the police.
I'm sorry. I didn't without the uniform.
Regular human clothes make people more comfortable.
But in 1994, things got ugly when Goldthwait appeared on the Arsenio Hall show and took a shot at Seinfeld.
Oh, he's very popular. You don't want to do that.
He's the devil. No. He's a spooky, weird Scientologist guy banging teenage girls.
Goldthwait didn't stop there, though. As a comedian, he kept throwing shade all throughout the 90s and early 2000s. And in fact, in 2003, he mocked Seinfeld's documentary, Comedian, saying, "Here's a guy with $450 million bummed out because he can't get laughs at an improv. Dude, if that's bad, just stay off the stage. You've got enough money to pay people to clap." For the most part, Seinfeld kept his mouth shut until 2019 when he finally clapped back during an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
You know, I'm good friends with that's his
I don't
friend.
like him.
At
all.
Oh, no.
At all. He used to rail against comedians because they weren't as wild and dangerous as he was, because he sucked. Okay? He wasn't funny.
Yeah.
The animosity between the two has simmered for decades, and from the looks of things, neither is interested in bearing the hatchet. Goldthwait, for one, has made it clear he doesn't expect things to cool down until one of them kicks the bucket. Reflecting on Seinfeld's criticisms of him, Goldthwait would remark, "I really don't hate the guy. It's worse, I don't care about him." While Seinfeld and Goldthwait despised each other, David Spade always held a level of respect for Eddie Murphy, even though things between them were as tense as a tightrope. David Spade jumped in the Saturday Night Live scene in 1990, quickly making a name for himself. His Hollywood Minute segment was the perfect platform for his no-filter style, where he fired off rapid, biting comments about celebrities, much to the delight of the audience.
I've been checking out the fashion magazines lately, and I have one question. Remember when models used to be pretty? Here's my idea. Why doesn't the fashion industry tell us what men are good looking and let the heterosexuals pick the girls? Deal?
But Spade's brand of humor was not always a hit with his targets, especially when it came to Eddie Murphy. And during one of the infamous Hollywood Minute segments, Spade delivered this stinging line about the star.
Look, children, it's a falling star. Make a wish. Yeah, yes, that's right.
The joke was an obvious dig at Murphy's career, which wasn't exactly booming at the time. Eddie Murphy was one of Saturday Night Live's biggest breakout stars in the early 80s, but he didn't take the joke lightly. Feeling betrayed by his SNL family, the Beverly Hills cop icon saw the remark as a serious low blow. Murphy even called out the joke for its racial undertones, sparking controversy and leading him to distance himself from SNL for years. Despite his massive success in Hollywood blockbusters, this moment would create a long-lasting rift between both him and the legendary sketch comedy show. Spade, for his part, later admitted that maybe the joke was a bit too harsh, and also shared how Murphy gave him a call right after the show, and it was not a friendly chat.
He started yelling at me, and
he did?
Yeah.
He yelled. What did you say about it?
He was saying, I mean, it made sense. He was saying, You know,
Lighten up on me, homie.
I helped keep that show around, and I'm the reason you still have a job.
Oh, please, Eddie, mellow.
Spade later admitted feeling pretty bad about the whole thing and has since talked about how much he actually respects Murphy and his influence on comedy. As intense as that was, the feud between Chevy Chase and Bill Murray might be one of the most dramatic showbiz rivalries of all time, and it all went down at the infamous Saturday Night Live reunion. SNL is known for its high-pressure, fast-paced environment and is basically a pressure cooker, but for the most part, those tensions stay behind the scenes. Well, except for this one time when things got physical, and the whole mess was sparked by Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. Chase had a meteoric rise on SNL, but behind the fame, there was a lot of resentment from other cast members, especially after he left the show in 1976 and was replaced by Murray. By 1978, tensions boiled over, and Chevy came back to host, but not everyone was thrilled about it due to the comedian's difficult attitude and cocky demeanor. On the night of the reunion, things came to a head between the pair.
And I went in, I was probably a little full of myself after a year of fame or whatever. I think that Billy probably wanted to knock me down a couple of rungs, you know?
The two exchanged heated words, and a full-blown fistfight broke out just moments before the show was about to go live.
I might have thrown a glancing punch off to his forehead.
Wow.
And Billy, I think, might have hit him in the back of the head. So John was the one.
John broke it up.
John broke his head up. I mean, no. Yeah, basically. And then also Brian Doyle Murray, who's Billy's older brother, came behind me and grabbed my arms to stop me.
Okay.
And while the feud between Katt Williams and Kevin Hart was not as well known, it's definitely been just as intense, if not more. You see, both Williams and Hart are well known for making people laugh until they cry, but when it comes to their beef, there's nothing funny about it. For those who might not be familiar, Williams already had made a name for himself in comedy with his sharp wit and high-energy performances.
The truth is just as strange as fiction. Taco Bell selling chicken wings. This is in Revelation, bitch.
Williams was riding high in the comedy world, but legal troubles and personal struggles began to take its toll, causing his career to stall out. Around that same time, Kevin Hart's career was skyrocketing, fueled by his relatable humor and relentless work ethic, making him one of the most recognizable comedy superstars in the industry.
I recently realized that I don't have any patience for unattractive people. There, I said it. That's how I feel. I feel like they're very needy. Unattractive people are very needy. They always want something. Excuse me, excuse me. Excuse me, you know where I can... No, I don't. No. 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 I treat them like cats. Get your ass out of here.
As Hart's fame would explode, inevitable comparisons to Katt Williams began to circulate, with some fans hailing Hart as the new king of comedy, a title that did not sit very well with Williams. And feeling as though Hart was overshadowing his legacy, Williams began throwing subtle shade, but by 2016, the minor digs had escalated into full-blown public feuds, grabbing headlines while igniting major controversy in the comedy world. That year, Williams went all in, calling Hart a puppet and hinting that his success was a product of Hollywood's manipulation. Things really went south, though, in 2018 when Williams took aim at Tiffany Haddish, a close friend of Hart, claiming that she wasn't a true comedian and only succeeded because of other connections. This time, Hart wasn't about to let it slide. He defended Haddish to the Breakfast Club, using the moment to call out Williams for not owning up to his own career setbacks.
Hollywood this, the white man, this, and this. When do you take responsibility for your actions? You had the shot.
Although Hart would later admit he regretted responding to Williams, Williams has never missed a chance to keep the jabs coming. Similarly, another relationship that turned sour was between David Letterman and Jay Leno, when Leno snagged the job that David thought was his. But to really understand how things went south with these two, we have to take a trip back in time to the early 1990s when Johnny Carson, the king of late night, announced his retirement from The Tonight Show. Naturally, most people simply assumed that Letterman, who was hosting Late Night with David Letterman at the time, that aired right after Carson, would step into the spotlight, and after all, Letterman had been crushing it with his quirky humor and offbeat style. However, NBC had a surprise up their sleeve that really made jaws drop. They ended up giving the job to Jay Leno instead. The decision would blindside Letterman, who felt completely betrayed by the network that he had been loyal to for many years. And to make things even more messy, there were whispers that Leno had even made a secret deal with the NBC execs to secure the hosting gig. Feeling snubbed, Letterman then packed his bags and moved to CBS, launching The Late Show with David Letterman in direct competition with Leno's Tonight Show. What followed would be a ratings war and plenty of subtle and not-so-subtle jabs that were thrown on air. Things got messy again in 2010 when NBC bumped Conan O'Brien off of The Tonight Show to bring Leno back. Letterman would then jump at the chance to throw more shade.
And so here's what happened. Jay Leno, of course, had been the host of The Tonight Show for like 17 years, and he said, yeah, I think I'd like to do something else.
I'm telling jokes and making fun of Jay Leno over and over and over, relentlessly, mercilessly, simply for one reason, and that is, I'm really enjoying it.
But it's not just the guys in comedy who don't see eye to eye. Some of the women have had their fair share of feuds as well. Take, for instance, Ellen DeGeneres and Kathy Griffin. Ellen DeGeneres and Kathy Griffin are two prominent figures in comedy and entertainment. Each have carved their own unique paths in their careers. Ellen is known for her relatable humor and groundbreaking work, rose to fame with her sitcom Ellen in the 1990s, becoming a trailblazer when she publicly came out as gay on both her show and in real life, which was a pivotal moment in television history.
Susan, I'm gay.
She would later become a beloved talk show host with the Ellen DeGeneres Show, which ran for nearly 2 decades, earning awards and cementing her status as a cultural icon. Kathy Griffin, on the other hand, gained recognition for her sharp wit and fearless comedic style, often poking fun at celebrities and pop culture.
There she is in all her Cher-ness. She looks fantastic, no makeup. She's in like a zippy and like a warm-up suit. And by the way, little fun fact, did you know that Cher's real hair is long, thick, straight black hair? Her real hair is Cher hair. I never knew that.
The beef between the two goes back to 2007 when Ellen took a jab at Griffin on her show, calling her mean. Griffin didn't take kindly to that, especially since they were both women trying to make their way in a male-dominated comedy world. But by 2014, the feud had gone completely nuclear, especially after Joan Rivers passed away. Howard Stern and Andrew Dice Clay's story also took a similar route, from friends to foes. Stern and Clay were once comedy comrades, with Stern's shock jock radio persona and Clay's bold stand-up act making them a dynamic duo in the world of edgy humor. And for a while, the two were inseparable, feeding off of each other's outrageousness. But it turns out that their friendship was not as solid as it seemed. One unsolicited opinion was all it took to bring it all crashing down. Things went south when Stern publicly criticized Clay's comedy, calling it too crude and offensive, even for someone with his own provocative reputation. Clay, feeling betrayed, could not believe that his friend would turn on him like that, especially since Stern wasn't exactly known for holding back. The real fireworks took place when Clay took a call from Stern, and the two had it out right there on air.
You're blaming me for a bad appearance that you had on our show. And, okay, maybe I'm a crummy interviewer or whatever you want to say.
That's not what I said. Maybe you didn't read it.
No, I did read it. You're saying that I'm losing it, that I don't have an edge. And I said, gee, that's pretty interesting, you know. Coming from a guy who dropped, Andrew Dice Clay became Andrew Clay.
Even though Stern and Clay have both tried to downplay the feud over the years, making a few attempts to talk things out like adults, it's clear that the tension never really disappeared. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Larry David, because he wasn't only at odds with the cast of a show, he didn't see eye to eye with its producers either. Before his Saturday Night Live days, Larry David was already making waves on a show called Fridays, an SNL lookalike program where he worked with future stars like Michael Richards. But when David made the leap to SNL, things didn't exactly go smoothly. His relationship with the executive producer Dick Ebersol was rocky right from the start, and the two initially clashed hard over the show's infamous all-night writing sessions. David preferred getting his work done early to skip the endless grind, and Ebersol, on the other hand, didn't see it that way, and the feud almost turned physical. In typical Larry David fashion, after one heated blowout, he quit the show.
Was sitting in the chair,
And I marched over to him.
You probably didn't even know who you were.
I marched over to him. I said, "This f***ing show stinks! It stinks! It's shit! I'm done! I'm gone!"
But thanks to his neighbor, the real-life inspiration for Kramer, he cooled off and snuck back in a few days later like nothing had ever happened. While SNL clearly was not David's scene, the experience may have been the spark that led to the brilliance of Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Just like David couldn't find common ground with SNL, Sarah Silverman couldn't find common ground with many of her male counterparts in the comedy world. One of the most talked about feuds was with Bill Burr during an interview on I Love You America with Sarah Silverman. From the beginning, it became clear their comedic styles didn't quite match. Burr's more abrasive approach had clashed with Silverman, leading to some pretty heated moments.
But we fight like siblings. Please welcome brilliant comedian who I love to pieces but who makes me fucking crazy, Bill Burr.
Silverman also had a notable dust-up with a comedy club owner by the name of Al Martin. In a PSA about the wage gap, she shared a story about being paid less than Todd Barry for the same exact show.
He just got $60 and I just got $10. We did the exact same time, back to back on the same show.
Martin responded, explaining that Silverman wasn't supposed to be paid since she was a guest performer, and he argued that the pay difference wasn't about gender, but talent. This would kick off a larger conversation about pay equality in comedy, although Silverman would later admit that her example might not have been the best fit. So there you have it. If you like this story, then please make sure you comment down below. And also like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss another great video from Project Hysteria.